Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
According to reports, Giannis is ready to be done with Milwaukee and the Bucks. Also, the Browns are hiring Todd Monken as their next head coach. And after originally committing to return to Duke, quarterback Darian Mensah is headed to Miami. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Giannis and the Bucks seem more likely than ever to be headed toward divorce, and sooner rather than later. Locked On Bucks host Camille Davis and Justin Garcia react to what is happening and brace for the uncertainty that lies ahead for the franchise.
Two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home at the February 5th NBA trade deadline or in the offseason as several rival teams make aggressive offers to the Milwaukee Bucks for him. And the franchise is starting to listen, league sources tell ESPN. Now, I'm just going to say this because I've seen quite a bit of it as well. Okay, like you've been pushing this whole thing for months and there's nothing new in that reporting. Not necessarily anything new in there. The last part was the interesting part with the franchise is starting to listen, according to league sources.
Yeah, because all up to this point, we've heard the Bucks have repeatedly refuted any trade request conversations about Giannis. And the part of just hearing like the team is starting to listen makes it feel like we might be getting to this point. Like I made a joke with a few of my friends when the news broke. And I was like, this whole season, like Giannis has been giving me Donnell Jones energy. I'm not sure if you remember the song from like the late 90s, early 2000s, Where I Want to Be. But
I'm like 25 years older than you as we got into the age discussion on the Discord today, too.
But that's how I feel like Giannis has been all season. Like when you love someone, you just don't treat them bad. Oh, how I feel so sad now that I want to leave. She's crying her heart to me. How can you let this be? But I need time to see where I want to be. But the funny thing about that report is that it still didn't technically say that he's requesting a trade. Like that language has not really been in there at this point. But it does feel like we're at a point in this relationship where it just might be coming to a close. Again, I think that Donnell Jones song fits very well into this season and Giannis's positioning. But yeah, it feels like this is the most momentum we've had around this since all the noise has started around where it's Giannis' future going to be, and is it going to be in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see a trade request if this year is any indication of it. It's very clear neither side wants to be the bad guy here. And I think we've talked about it before. If you don't accept an extension or make it clear I'm not going to sign an extension, that is not a verb trade request. For all intents and purposes, that is a trade request. The wording too of ready for a new home, like that feels like a soft trade request. And it's an awkward spot for me to be in for the obvious reasons, but even more awkward where I don't want to say I'm defending Shams, but like, let's view this under a critical lens, at least. If this were any other player in the league, Bucks fans would be saying that's over. Like he's clearly headed out. All the things that have accumulated on the way here, and that's currently where we're at. I know it's happened through the years with Giannis, and it feels like a never-ending task that we hear about. Well, this team is going after Giannis. The Heat are keeping their eyes on Giannis, and the Knicks that we heard in the offseason and other teams. And for so many years it's out there, but it doesn't happen that it's because he is lying. I think we have to be willing and open to accept the fact that this may be where it's headed. And we're not going to turn this into how trustworthy the media is and how fake this news is and whether or not this is accurate reporting. at the very least, we can acknowledge there is a lot of smoke to this. And even some of the responses that we have gotten this season, after games, at media day, I mean, we're all kind of sweeping that under the rug if you're saying this is fake and this is part of the agenda to get him out of Milwaukee. I mean, Giannis himself back at media day said, I don't recall meeting with the ownership group over the summer. 20 minutes after we heard Wes Eden say he went to Greece and had a meeting with Giannis. All of it that's been out there. I mean, you could end this at any moment and give an answer that's more definitive in that I want to finish. We've heard, like, I hope to retire a Buck, but there's always been a caveat that's been added to, but the organization can do this, but trades happen. And that's true, right? We saw Luka Doncic traded, but you do hold most of the cards in this relationship. And if you wanted to be a Buck for your entire career, there's a 99% chance of that happening. If those are the intentions you're making clear and saying, look, I know we're struggling right now. I know the makeup of things doesn't look great with how things haven't fit, everything else that we've critiqued and will continue to get into, but I'm willing to see this through and I want to be here. We haven't heard that, right? We've heard steps in that direction. We haven't fully gotten there, and we've seen just as many steps in the other direction.
Stay up to date all year on the Milwaukee Bucks by subscribing to Locked On Bucks on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports today. Coming up, the Browns have hired Todd Monken. Before we get to that, Drake May's health is a question before the Super Bowl. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over for a long time. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Patriots have listed quarterback Drake May as limited before practices for Super Bowl 60.
But let's get to David Chow's opinion that he shared on a podcast. Drake May was injured on a scramble. Now, Dr. David Chow says it happened around the 4-minute mark of the third quarter when protection broke down. Drake May leaked out to his left. He was tackled as he landed on his right elbow and across his body. Now, Dr. David Chow says Drake May immediately grabbed at his right shoulder after the play before returning to the huddle. The following snap was a handoff, and Drake May was seen working out his shoulder between plays. Dr. Chow said the sequence of events strongly suggests a shoulder injury. Greg Bedard of Boston Sports Journal, he posted on Monday night that the information he has at the moment is that any Drake May quote-unquote injury to his throwing shoulder is not believed to be an issue.
Over in the NBA, the Hawks took a road dub over the Celtics.
That was a rough one for the Boston Celtics, who fell behind by 21 in the first quarter and never really recovered. They got it down to single digits at one point, but they did not look good, except for a stretch about 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. For the rest of the quarter, I thought the Celtics brought good energy, but they just didn't have it in this game. They couldn't hit a shot. They hit 9 3-pointers. Half of what the Hawks hit was the Hawks shot 18 of 42. When you get doubled up from 3, that's a recipe for a loss. Jaylen Brown, a stinker in this one. The Celtics, every time they turned the ball over, it felt like the Hawks were cashing in on that. The Hawks, much different game from them. Last time they played, they were coming back from a long road trip, and now they came in here. They were motivated. I think they wanted to prove something. The Celtics might have thought that the last game was indicative of something, and it just they just stunk it up in this one. Not much more to say, but I will talk about it on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
And the Rockets tackled Wemby and the Spurs.
Jeff Garcia here, Locked On Spurs. Spurs, yeah. When Houston got a 111-99 win against their interstate rival. So what happened? Why did it work in Houston? After the last time they were there, they blew a 16-point lead. Takeaway number one, physicality. That's been a word that's been thrown about for the Spurs since the preseason until, well, before tonight's game, where the Spurs just lack physicality. They brought it tonight, muscling into the paint, drawing fouls on Houston, getting to the free throw line. You love what you saw. If you were needing some physicality out of the Spurs, you got it tonight versus Houston. It showed in the numbers, 24 trips to the free throw line to Houston's 18. And staying on par with Rockets in the battle of the boards, 46 rebounds apiece. Number two, why the Spurs got the win? Balanced scoring. Look, Wemby was Wemby, 28 points, 16 rebounds. He had himself 5 block shots. Great. But he got help. He has 16 points from Stephon Castle. He got 18 points from Fox. Spurs got 17 from Keldon Johnson off the bench and 16 from the rookie Dylan Harper. That is complete balanced scoring. That is the help that Victor needed.
For most of the Browns coaching cycle, it looked like they were going to go young, unproven. Instead, old and I guess somewhat unproven. Todd Monken is going to be the head coach for the Cleveland Browns. His first shot in his 60s here with Cleveland. A number of younger candidates looked like they were front runners, and then some pulled themselves out. Some just never finished the process, and the Browns landed on Todd Monken. Spencer German from Locked On Browns joins me now. And Spencer, make the case for this from a Browns perspective. Why does this make sense for Cleveland?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to find the positive in it, it's a guy who obviously is an innovative offensive mind in this league, has worked most recently in Baltimore with an MVP winner in Lamar Jackson. Now, he's not going to have that here in Cleveland, but I think the thought process is, hey, like there's some good things that he can produce offensively. We've seen it tangibly before. He took that Ravens offense from, the Greg Roman sort of setup to what he brought there and made it one of the best offenses in football the last few years. Even this past year, they ended up being a pretty good offense despite some of the injuries with Lamar and all that when all things were said and done. I also think the fact that his offense is pretty malleable. He doesn't subscribe to one system. Is probably a good thing, especially for where the Browns are at right now in terms of not having the quarterback position for sure figured out, needing to sort of rebuild a number of different areas from wide receiver to the offensive line. So it sounds like he presented a clear vision for, what he thinks this offense can be and what it can look like and how they can transform it. And I've already seen some people talking about the idea that he has the experience of kind of being that leader of men, leading team meetings, and some players reflected on the fact that they actually think Todd, talks like a head coach. He presents that way. He just has never really had the opportunity here. So, and I want to be clear, I don't think, to me, it's not fair to come into this and just say well, Todd Monken's clearly going to stink. We don't know. He's never been a head coach before. The same way we wouldn't have known with Nate Scheelhaus or Grant Udinsky. We don't know. But I think the problem that a lot of people have is it feels like the process led you to this. And if the process led you to this, that the process must have been wrong because this is the Cleveland Browns. And they often don't get these things right. And that's where I think people are sort of not feeling the warm and fuzzies about Todd Monken being the selection in the end.
Yeah, and he was a head coach at Southern Miss in college. And by the way, won a national title at Georgia. So it's not like he hasn't been part of successful programs. And I don't want to shortchange him, by the way. He turned 60 in a week and a half. So not 60 yet. That leadership quality here, I don't think we can understate that, given the culture in Cleveland and what they've been trying to do for a long time. There's something intuitive, Spencer, about let's bring in a young coach who can just build this program. Well, it's really hard for a young, unproven coach to command a room of professional athletes. It does seem like there is utility in saying, hey, here's a guy who has been in the room with MVPs, with Kirby Smart, with national championship winners, and he knows how to handle himself in those rooms. He is, pardon the phrase, a grown-ass man.
No, you're right. And I will say, the risk in hiring one of those young guys was always going to be that there's an unknown element that you don't know how they're going to handle that piece of it, right? Like the CEO being a leader of men, talking to a locker room. when you know what hits the fan, which in Cleveland it seems like you know what almost always hits the fan at some point in every season. Like, how are they going to handle those moments? You just don't know. And so I think there's value in bringing in a guy who knows how to talk to those caliber of players, who has been part of teams that, like you said, in college have won championships, has been part of a locker room and a team that has an MVP candidate on it and has done some things and made deep playoff runs and all these different things. So there's value in that. I'm assuming, we'll hear from Browns brass at some point, and they'll explain the hire to us in more depth and kind of what led them to Todd Monken. I'm imagining that probably did play a role in their decision here in some capacity. So yeah, I think that leadership piece is super valuable, and it's the thing that sometimes people forget about when they're talking about the Sean McVay tree and finding the next guy. We get so focused on the X's and O's, we forget about that part. And I do think that's something that does work in Todd Monken's favor that he has.
Quickly here, what is the best case for a quick turnaround here? Because like I said, he is going to be 60 when the season opens. This might not be, a 10, a 15-year partnership in Cleveland, but if it can be 4, 5, 6 years, get this team moving in the right direction, like what is the optimistic case that they can get this turned around quickly?
Yeah, I think it starts with whatever offensive plan they have this offseason, right? Like how are they planning on fixing the offensive line? How are they planning on fixing the wide receiver room? What other needs do they have outside of quarterback, which is still a major question mark for this team? What is Todd Monken's plan for that position? Is he going to lean into Shedeur being the guy? We know that there is, the story about the Ravens having interest in drafting Shedeur Sanders, and he sort of rebuffed them and said he wanted to go somewhere where he could actually play sooner. So how much did Todd Monken have interest in him before? Maybe we'll find out. But it starts there. And listen, I said it going into this year, like if they just had a competent offense with how good their defense was, I thought they could probably win like 6 or 7 games and surprise some people. They ended up winning 5. So I was pretty close to that. And their offense was putrid. So if you can get this offense at least trending in the right direction, I think it bodes well for that growth. The timeline is going to be the interesting thing here though, because like you said, I don't know that Todd Monken's going to be here, 10 years from now with a quarterback that they draft or something that's their franchise quarterback and kind of leading the charge. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I think it starts with like what the plan is this offseason to get this offense fixed.
Stay up to date all year on the Cleveland Browns by subscribing to Locked On Browns on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, Miami already has their next quarterback. Fresh off a national championship appearance, the Miami Hurricanes have already found a replacement for Carson Beck. Locked On Canes host Alex Dunno celebrated the addition of Duke transfer Darian Mensah and broke down what Mensah can do for the Canes' title hopes later this year.
Cooper Barkate, a top 10 receiver nationally, signs with the Canes, joining his starting quarterback, Darian Mensah. Miami now has one of the top signal callers in the country again. 3rd straight year. If you thought Mario couldn't do it for the 3rd straight year, was Cam Ward in 2024, goes on to be a number 1 overall pick. Was Carson Beck in 2025, who helps lead Miami to the national championship game. And now you get Darian Mensah, fresh off a season where he was the nation's 2nd leading passer. Mario Cristobal has done it again. Yesterday was just a tornado of action. Tuesday morning was when we officially got the word. Statements were released by Mensah's legal team, headed up by Darren Heitner, sports attorney, also Mensah's agency, and then the Duke legal team. They both put out statements confirming that the two sides had settled out of court and that Mensah would be free to transfer to the school of his choice, which we all knew by that time the school of his choice was going to be the University of Miami. So then after the settlement was released, by the afternoon time, Mensah and Barkate were both on campus in Coral Gables making their official visit to Miami. And they got, folks, if you're not aware of the amazing campus tour, golf carting around campus that Miami staffer and former Miami cornerback Mike Rumpf gives, His tours are legendary. So they got the full tour from Coach Rumpf, Barkate and Mensah, and then they got wined and dined in the evening. I would love to walk in the shoes of one of these recruits or transfer guys when they get taken to Prime 112. Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Malachi Toney was along for that as well. Edgerrin James was there. They went out to Prime 112 in the evening, out for a nice dinner, and then shortly after that dinner came to a close, you get the official announcements. Darian Mensah has signed with the University of Miami. Cooper Barkate, his top receiver from Duke, has signed with the University of Miami.
And finally, a courtroom shakeup in Tuscaloosa. The judge overseeing Alabama center Charles Bediaco's eligibility suit has recused himself after the NCAA flagged his donations to the university. Probably shouldn't have a donor running the case for Bediaco, but nevertheless, it now moves to Judge Daniel Pruitt, the same judge handling ex-Tide player Darius Miles' murder case, while Bediaco's temporary restraining order stays in place, keeping him eligible until an injunction hearing. The NCAA and a large number of coaches remain adamantly opposed, but for now, Alabama can play him Sunday at number 19 Florida as the optics battle shifts over to a new bench. Coming up, somehow the Browns found a coach before the Raiders and Cardinals. What gives out west? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.